I was just gonna disagree with you. Well, I don't know if you meant on a micro or macro evolution, like, so that would be my first question. Were you talking about like elephants turning into monkeys, or were you talking about the differences in birds' beaks?
It doesn't matter, I guess. I don't think elephants will turn into monkeys, but so I guess we'll do the bird beak thing then. That sounds a little more evolutionary than elephants turning into monkeys, but I don't think that'll happen.
Well, I mean, like, isn't that the main argument for, I don't know, all you people? Like, people came from monkeys. Isn't that what everyone seems to believe?
Yeah, how outrageous is that? you know, we're so unlike monkeys. You know, they have like 5 fingers, and we got at least. Well, oh yeah, I guess maybe it's five. No, of course, yes, we're monkeys. Well, I don't know. I
No.
mean, you can. I just genetically we're 99% that, and then we're 98% this, and then we're 97% that. I mean, you just look at the chromosome thing; it's just so obvious. And even right in our chromosomes, there's a little subtle little thing there, where we have one less pair of chromosomes because one of ours fused, and it's they found the little scar, on our whatever it is, 22nd chromosome or whatever number it is. Um, I mean, yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna argue. I'm not the best person to talk to sit there and explain evolution in 2 seconds, but I mean, it's so apparent. 4 billion years, and yeah, animals got more tools, and eventually they got this brain thing. I just don't know how you can't see the commonness between us and the other mammals.
Right. Well, there's a common between like whales and a cow. Like they're both mammals. They both have um, re- they're they both have lactating um, skills or whatever you want to call them, and they also breathe air. But one of them lives underwater and is like 5 buses, and the other one is not. So I mean, like, there's a great difference, and so a lot of things are alike that are different. You know what I'm saying? They have a.
Well, I know, but I mean, that's the whole thing. If you dissect a whale, you'll find a pelvis. What does it need a pelvis for? I mean, whales are just I guess they figured it was elephants that went back into the water. So I mean, yeah, so elephants decided to go hang out at the beach, and they stayed a little too long, and they turned into whales. I mean, it seems perfectly sensible to me. Why would there be mammals in the ocean? I mean, it's a crazy place for mammals to be living. I mean, they wouldn't develop there on their own. They had to go from land back into the water. It makes perfectly good sense.
Well, the thing is, I was linked to a video about one of those things, and I think it was like they were talking about some kind of old coyote or something because they were linked by a whale or by an ear bone. I think that's kind of extremely too vague to even go off of. I mean, that's extremely fallacious. I mean, it's just an ear bone. It's like they had an ear bone, so they must have been related to a dog or something. And I'm like, oh my god, it's just
Well, I know,
it's
but you
just
don't
a
have to go
general
by that.
fallacious.
Just go by their fins. A whale's fins. They got 5 fingers in their fucking fin. I mean, why the hell would they do that? Why would they have a hand inside their fin?
But I mean, also it's like the mathematical changes. Like you have to take. I mean, I don't know if you've seen
No,
David
the
Berlinski's
probability that doesn't work.
Oh,
The,
well,
the,
anyways, I don't know if you've seen the David Berlinski video on my profile, but he's a he has a pro anyways, he's in mathematics and stuff like that, and I can't think of the word, and he's done mathematics, and he thinks that there's just not enough time for something like, let's say, um, just to be crude, like he says, a cow to change into a whale. I mean, you have to, with each change, you have to think, oh, your eyes and each you know, um, every single thing that they have that has to be adapted to the water has to change. So it's
Yeah, no, well, look, there's no point in going on and on about this, but that math is based on a wrong assumption. Okay, so it's useless. They're assuming that evolution is taking place on this slow, broad, huge population scale instead of recognizing that most evolution takes place in a dark cave somewhere or on some isolated island or in some narrow population. All of the North American population, they've basically traced it back to 8 females. Okay, 8 females are going to have a whole lot of uh, um, it's kind of like inbreeding, and inbreeding hugely accelerates evolution because it creates a lot more mutation. I mean, a lot more what's the word? Variety in from that narrow base. So you can have a lot more deformities, and those deformities eventually, some of them will be good and positive for the new environment and all that kind of crap. So, but that's where evolution takes place. It takes place in small populations. That's where all the big changes take place, is in small populations. Um, and so that's where the math has to take that into account, that you can have huge change in a small population in just a few hundred years.
Uh,
Go ahead, Hyundai.
Junglist, you're making this assumption that something like a cow went into a whale, when the case was something simpler got more complex and variated to make multiple different creatures. It wasn't necessarily something changing from one thing to the other. It evolved. It increased in complexity into
No, it
one
didn't. No,
creature.
no, 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 no. It didn't. It didn't increase in complexity. No, it morphed. Okay, it morphed, and yeah, but it took time. It took a few million years, whatever. It slowly went through some progression, and yeah, we don't have a complete fossil record of whales, unfortunately. I mean, it's hard to get good fossils out of the ocean. But obviously,
It's pretty
it did
easy.
exactly.
It's the
It
easiest
did.
one.
Well, it's not pretty easy. It isn't. It's full of that's bullshit. But anyway, it was just the opposite of what happened to us. I mean, we start off as fishes, and they became amphibians, and then they went the full reptile road. And the same thing just happened in reverse. Mammals went from being land creatures to being semi-aquatic, and then they went all the way. I mean, it's not that complicated. And so there was lots of intermediary stages to get to that point where their nostrils moved to the top of their head, and they got more streamlined for swimming. But you can see it. Look at the amphibian mammals you already have. You got sea otters, you got seals, you got walruses. You got lots of animals that even polar bears are starting to go there a little bit. I mean, they're like bears, but they do a lot of swimming.
Uh, Actually, sea animals are the easiest ones to preserve their fossils. But what I was going to say is there's observed instances of evolution. Just look both macro and micro. You can look up observed instances of speciation, and you'll find a large list. So regardless of whether if you want to argue it didn't happen to us, fine, but don't completely discredit science by saying the whole concept of evolution is not true, because it is.
Well, we can see it in our own species. We can see it in our own races of the human race. You can see the progression through Europe, across to Australia. I mean, you can see it. And so, why wouldn't you just take that obvious evidence of our own, the evolution of the human that's taking place in the last 40,000 years? I mean, right there, it gives you this indication that this genetics has and then look at broccoli, for Christ's sakes. Look at the tomato. I mean, slight genetic variations on some kind of native form, and look what you end up with. I mean, it's just so easy. It's so obvious that that's been going on planet Earth for a long fucking time.
I'm not discrediting science. So I mean, I think you've taken that extremely far. Science is rather helpful. And on the fossil records, they only have about like 3 or 5 fossils to go off of. And like I said, they're quite small things, like an